realised that we're gonna crash.
My bone's sticking out of my leg. I had 4 infections. One of them was a flesh-eating one. The surgeon told me I had to have my leg amputated. I started having really, really vivid hallucinations. I remember having the thought like I'm dying. I decided to go to Thailand after I finished university. The plan was to travel around Southeast Asia on mopeds. I had probably the best 1,000 miles of my life, going up to the mountains, seeing wild elephants. I had such a good time.
I started off doing a TEFL course because I wanted to teach English out there. I did scuba diving, hiking, a lot of drinking as well was involved.
Aimie and I were staying in the same hostel. We headed off quite quickly. We had planned to go to a party out in the jungle. Aimie didn't have a moped, so she didn't have a helmet. So I took mine off and gave it to her, and she asked me, was it okay that I was going to drive without a helmet? And I was like, sure, we're only going up the road, it'll be fine.
It was quite dark and the roads were so windy. It was kind of like exciting, but also it did feel dangerous.
We were just driving along the road. I just completely misjudged a left-hand turn.
I became hyper-aware in that moment and realised that we're going to crash. And I had to take a moment just to make sure I was okay. I walked over to him and I saw him lay on his back.
If there's a road accident, call for help immediately and don't move the person unless their life depends on it. If their spine is broken, even the slightest of movement can make all the difference. Check the casualty is breathing. Place your ear above their mouth looking at their body. If the person is unresponsive and not breathing, attempt to open their airway. Put your fingertips on the angle of the jaw and gently lift to open the airway. Don't tilt their neck. This could damage their spine. Look, listen and feel for 10 seconds. If they are still not breathing, begin CPR.
His leg, it was like bent in quite a funny position and the bone was sticking out.
If the casualty has an open fracture, cover the wound to protect against infections. If you don't have a sterile dressing at hand, use any piece of clean fabric. Ripping part of a t-shirt is okay. Apply pressure around the wound to reduce blood loss. Don't touch the bone. Keep the casualty still. Support the injured area from above and below the fracture to stop it from moving. Place padding around the injured area for extra support.
There was quite a lot of blood. I told him to focus on his breathing, just to take his attention off his leg, because that is something that he does not need to see right now. I could see him drifting into unconsciousness.
The casualty may have gone into shock. Loosen any tight clothing around their neck, chest and waist and cover them with something to keep them warm. Reassure them that help is on the way.
I'm not sure how long it was until the first person came past, but they were Thai, so they could call an ambulance for us. As soon as they did, I kind of just broke down because I felt like I could.
The first thing I remember was waking up in the ambulance, like screaming in pain. I could see like my bones sticking out of my leg, and it was pretty grim. That was like a 3.5, 4 hour drive. I was bleeding out and in complete agony. They had to knock me out. I woke up to a surgeon trying to tell me that I was going to have my leg amputated. That's a really hard thing to hear, especially in broken English.
I called his parents. Just imagine him being in his parents' situation and getting a call from halfway across the world. Having to say that to somebody it was horrible. Yeah.
For nearly 4 days, a surgeon was trying to convince me to have my leg amputated. He couldn't tell me why, because he didn't speak English, so that was really difficult. I was basically saying no. Little did I know, I had 4 infections. One of them was like a flesh-eating one as well.
I think my words were, suck this up and let them amputate your leg, because you can live without your leg, but we can't live without you.
I ended up going into shock because sepsis took over. I started having really, really vivid hallucinations. I started seeing aggressive dogs barking at me, and all my monitors going off and my heart rate going up.
We had a 2-hour gap in between the 2 connecting flights, and we knew then that Ross's condition had severely deteriorated.
I remember actually having the thought, like, I'm dying, like I know that I'm dying, even though they weren't there. I said it in my head, like I told my mum and dad that I loved them and that I was sorry what happened.
We were just glad to see him alive.
It was obviously devastating that I'd had an amputation, but I genuinely was grateful to be alive.
Quite quickly, I realised he needed more specialist care.
My insurance company agreed to pay my medical expenses so I could move to a private hospital. The amputation didn't take away the infection properly, so they took another 10 centimetres off. I had something like 13 or 14 surgeries. To help the healing process, they put like a vacuum on it, which takes out all the bad bacteria. I was put on loads of medication. I had weeks of just feeling so low and depressed and looking into the future and seeing what I was going to have to deal with. As an amputee, the thing you want to do is get back to walking again. The first few steps were absolutely incredible. Walking wasn't just about walking again, it was getting a sense of independence.
Ross had these very much life-changing injuries. I did feel at the onset of depression and anxiety. I feel really, really guilty.
I absolutely believe that if Aimie hadn't been on the back of my moped whenever I crashed, that I wouldn't have survived. She was so amazing. Psychologically, it was hard to accept. Sometimes, I get sore because I've been walking for so long. The physical part for me is the easy part. The harder part is just the guilt of feeling like that I put my family and friends through so much pain and emotion. The turning point for me was being offered to play wheelchair basketball. It completely turned being in a wheelchair into something amazing, and be around a load of people who have been through sometimes harder things than you just kind of humbles you and brings you down and makes you realise you're not alone.
I was fortunate because I was wearing a jacket that day. It's really important to make sure that your clothes cover you.
Because I wasn't wearing a helmet, I actually had a bleed in my brain. You're not just protecting your own health, you're also protecting other people around you that you could possibly hurt through hurting yourself.
Avoid getting on a moped abroad. There will always be safer alternatives. If you do take the risk, wear a helmet, protective clothing, and make sure your arms and legs are covered.